Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, my Jude crew, and welcome to a new era of this podcast. As I speak to you, I am currently in our brand new apartment, sipping on some iced coffee and enjoying the very, very hot summer air. This is officially the end of season 5 and the end of the podcast as you know it. But wait, please don't panic. I decided to change some things because I realized the quality of this podcast, I don't know, it just wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. And I want to stay true to my catchphrase of this podcast, which is how to survive as a young Catholic in a secular world. And I just feel like I wasn't really delivering on that to you guys. And so now I'm turning my podcast into a commentary podcast, bringing you relevant topics and news stories, advice. And, I want it to be more of a joyful and more deep Catholic perspective. And that's what this podcast has really always been about. But I feel like I haven't done that really. And I feel as though I owe that to you guys, of course, because this is what that podcast is supposed to be about. So with that being said, today I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what you guys can expect from this podcast going forward. So grab an iced coffee or your drink of choice, settle in, and let's chit chat. Let's get into this. All right, you guys, first order of business. Oh my gosh, we have a new pope. I know maybe the shock is worn off by now because it's officially been about a little more than a week. And, it's just so surreal to me, so crazy. We just moved last Friday, and the day before we officially moved, we were packing up our U-Haul and we saw white smoke coming from the Vatican. We were watching their live stream, my husband and I. And we were just really, really surprised at how quickly they chose a new pope. Like, not in a bad way. We were just so excited to see who our new vicar of Christ was. And, it took us a couple minutes because we were loading up the U-Haul and going to the TV and going back and forth, just like, oh, did we miss it? Did we miss it? My husband eventually called me down and he was like, oh, he's coming on in a couple minutes. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So we sat there, and after a while, the new pope appeared, and it was Cardinal Robert Prevost. Now, he's from Chicago, which is my hometown. So maybe I'm a little bit biased. I don't really care. But he took the name Pope Leo XIV, and he's the first American pope in the history of the Catholic Church. And now people are going to be like, oh, well, define American, He's the first American pope. All right. Born and raised in Chicago, probably went to a lot of the churches that I went to growing up, and that's just so surreal for me. He was elected on the feast of the apparition of St. Michael to Pope Leo XIII, which inspired Pope Leo XIII to write the St. Michael prayer, and the day he was elected was also the 80th anniversary of the ending of World War II in Europe. So I don't know, guys. I just feel like it's so crazy and providential, and God has humor. If God didn't have humor, we would not have humor. And I just think it's really, really exciting. It's a new era. And I'm just really excited to see where all of this goes. My husband and I, we got burgers and milkshakes to celebrate. We were going to get pizza, but at that time, last week, I was still kind of on my dairy cleanse, and now I'm totally off it. It was not worth it. Not worth it giving up ice cream, guys. But it was just so crazy because I hardly heard anything about him, my whole life. I lived in Chicago my entire life, and I don't remember him at all. I think that's probably what the Cardinals wanted, if you ask my opinion. I know a lot of people wanted like Cardinal Sarah or Cardinal Burke, but I just feel as though they were a little bit too established in the public eye, and it's better to go with someone who isn't as well known. And, the Holy Spirit guides the Cardinals, and, now we have a new pope, and it's crazy. Also, Pope Leo XIV, his background is quite interesting. He served in many areas of the church, but he has a long history of working with diverse communities. So his background in the United States, I feel like, is going to bring a bit of a different perspective to the Vatican, and I'm really excited to see where all of that goes. So also, his Instagram reached over like 1 million views yesterday, or 1 million follows, which is so crazy to think about. I think he knows how to deal with social media a lot better than our late Pope Francis, God rest his soul. You guys know I'm still, Pope Francis stan, but there were some things that I feel like made it a little more difficult during his papacy to explain and things like that. And I feel like Pope Leo the 14th, is doing a wonderful job of navigating social media. A good example, I guess, is there was this situation where he was greeting people and walking by, and there was someone holding what looked to be as a pride flag, but it was the Italian peace flag. However, Pope Leo probably knew how that was going to be perceived by the world and the media. He knows how people have twisted Pope Francis's words. He's probably seen this 1 million times. And so he decided it was more prudent to gracefully turn the other way and ignore it and move on than risk scandal, because it kind of slightly resembles the pride flag. But if you were to really look, you'd realize it wasn't a pride flag. And it's kind of unfortunate that he has to actually take these measures, because the Italian peace flag and what it stands for is very beautiful. But unfortunately, people are dumb. I hate to say that, but it's true. Americans see something and it just like slightly resembles something they know, and they instantly think it's that thing without critical thinking or giving the benefit of the doubt. And this is just a reminder to everyone that our first response should always be charity. We should not be jumping to conclusions, jumping down the rabbit hole. Just don't do that. We should always be responding with charity, and we should always be giving the benefit of the doubt. So I just want to throw that in there because that was a huge issue during Pope Francis's papacy. But it's a little bit early in Pope Leo's papacy, obviously. It's only been like a week, but I am excited to see what he does and, how he builds the bridges that have been broken for so long, it feels like. And I'm just very, very excited to see where this takes us. So yeah, okay, we have a new pope. Always remember to pray for him, because the world is against him. No one is more attacked than the pope. So we always need to be praying for him and our church leaders. Now, before we continue, I wanted to tell you guys about my Patreon. If you're enjoying this episode, then please consider joining my behind the scenes community over on Patreon, where you can see the full version of podcasts along with exclusive, ad-free, uncensored content and other perks. If you can't be a patron, totally understand. You can also support this ministry with a one-time donation on my website at thereligioushippie.com. And if you're unable to donate at all, please rate, subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you get notified every time I post a new podcast episode. I put a lot of work and drink a lot of coffee to keep this ministry going, and the only way I am able to do it is because of your guys' support, financial or otherwise. So thank you so, so much. It truly means more to me than you'll ever know, and I just could not do this without you guys. So thank you. All right. Now, with the election of Pope Leo XIV, the Catholic Church has become, I don't want to say like relevant, but it's become more relevant in the public eye. It's always been relevant, but you guys know what I mean. And so that means you need to know your faith, especially because of the increasing numbers of individuals, particularly young people who identify as non-religious. These are called nuns, or NONES. That's basically nuns. But these nuns represent a growing segment of society that doesn't claim any specific religious affiliation. According to the Pew Research Center, in 2023, nearly 3 in 10 U.S. adults are religious nuns. And I'm putting air quotes because nuns, none of your business. No, Amber, no. Anyways. And this is, this number is growing even higher among younger generations. So I am worried about how this shift is impacting young Catholics today. I'm placing you guys in a context where your faith is not shared in large, groups or with peers. And even if your faith is shared amongst peers in, maybe you go to Catholic college or something like that, it does not mean that your peers are devout Catholics. Many probably still believe in IVF and other things that the Catholic Church condemns because people are poorly catechized, and unfortunately many just do not care about their faith. It's very, very sad to see. So, I imagine a young Catholic in a college dorm or a workplace where conversations about weekend plans, things that you would normally talk about with your peers, don't revolve around mass or religious holidays or just, prayer, just nothing deeper than just the basics. It's very shallow, it feels like. And this might sound familiar, and honestly, this isn't a new thing. It's been going on for decades. But for the most part, I believe there were always groups or close friends or family to keep us on track. But now, people have just completely lost the art of conversation. When I say that, I think a lot of people are like, what? I talk to my friends all the time. But do you ever have deep conversations with friends who do not share your same faith? Some of you might say yes, and I'm so proud of that. That is amazing. But I'm sure many of you are saying, no, I can't really think of the last time I had a deep conversation with a friend who did not share my same faith. And that's tough, because there is a deepness that needs to be there for friendship. We need to have deep conversations because it forms connections with people. Shallow friendships hardly go anywhere outside of maybe getting dinner once in a while, how's work, how's this, how's that, but nothing ever more significant than that. And I think that's really sad. We need those deep conversations to grow. We need those challenging conversations to grow. We've also lost the art of arguing. And when I say that, I'm sure many people are probably like, well, why would I want to argue with anyone? Well, it used to be a civil thing you would do. You would disagree with someone and it wouldn't be personal. You could call someone out on their bad behavior and they wouldn't become super aggressive and maybe try to kill you. Now it seems that everything and anything is a trigger to those who refuse truth. Even some Catholics. I have had some very hostile conversations with Catholics, and it's very sad to see how defensive and hostile people can get from just simple truths about the faith. And, I've had plenty of conversations with friends who don't understand the faith or, they even actively question the faith sometimes. I would have questions like, why do you believe that? Or sometimes they'd even be dismissive statements about Catholicism being outdated or irrelevant. But maintaining faith in this environment truly requires intentionality. You got to be prepared to articulate your beliefs with clarity and charity, not defensively because we don't want to feed the fire, but it's more of like an invitation and an understanding. And you have to know when to walk away. Basically, when a conversation is not fruitful, it's going to do more damage than good. You have to be able to discern those things. And I think that can be difficult sometimes if you're not used to having these conversations. It will be uncomfortable for a while. I have to be honest with you guys. It will be uncomfortable, but you're going to get used to it. You're going to get more experience having these conversations and defending your faith, and you're going to become more confident over time. It's just, it can be hard for the first couple times. This also means recognizing, and this is a huge part of evangelizing to people, it means recognizing that your friends, anyone you meet, has perspectives that are shaped by their own experiences and upbringing. So they were brought up differently than you are. You have your own worldview, they have theirs. So engaging in respectful dialogue, even when disagreements arise, that is probably the most powerful form of witness you can do. And Pope Benedict XVI noted in his encyclical Caritas in Veritate, only in truth does charity shine forth. Only in truth can charity authentically be lived. Remember the importance of understanding the faith deeply so that we can then engage truthfully with others. And that's why you have me, hopefully, and this new version of the podcast, so I can guide you through these tricky situations because I've been there. And there are so many things I wish I could have done differently that I want to share with you guys that hopefully will keep you guys from making the same mistakes that I did when I first came back into my faith and started learning about it. So, what do we do to combat this? Well, Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys because it's going to be hard, but it's so worth it. Even if you don't see the fruits immediately or ever, just know that God is working through you. We are tools in his hands. He is going to use you in amazing ways. So what do we do? Number one thing, please know your faith. I know that sounds really obvious. People are like, come on, Amber, this is so obvious. Are you serious? But you would be surprised at the amount of people who tell me that they're just coasting off what they learned in CCD when they were like 10. And they probably weren't paying much attention at that time. There are many people who do not know their faith. And when they are faced with questions like, why are you Catholic? Or even, what is the Eucharist? They just don't know how to respond. Now, I hope that that's not a majority of people, but there does seem to be a theme amongst the people who email me on these topics. So, where do you learn about your faith if you're an adult? Where do you start?
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. From daily routines to life-changing adventures, the Toyota Grand Highlander is spacious, powerful, and ready to take on life's grand challenges. Advanced safety features and innovative technology give you confidence for whatever life throws at you. And it's available in a hybrid Nightshade Special Edition, which includes sophisticated gloss black exterior accents and 20-inch black alloy wheels. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
Firstly, the first thing I want you guys to do, go on Amazon, go on wherever, Tan Books, etc. Use my promo code Amber15 at Tan Books. Get a Catechism of the Catholic Church. This book is going to be your best friend. You can also watch YouTube channels like mine or Ascension Presents or Catholic Answers and Council of Trent. Trent Horn is amazing. But remember, just take your time with this. Absorb the information. Don't try to rush through it. It's not a race. And if there is something you're confused about, go onto Google and type in your question with Catholic Answers at the end. So let's say you have a question about praying to Mary. Type in praying to Mary, Catholic Answers. And there will be a plethora of information that will pop up from Catholic Answers. They have tons of articles, videos, and documents basically explaining anything you would possibly need or want to know about the Catholic Church. So definitely use that to your advantage and take advantage of these online resources that are free. Also, the Catechism of the Catholic Church is free online, but I'm gonna be honest, they need to update that website. Looks like early 2000s crazy website. It's been a while since that website's been updated. So it might just be better for you to get a physical copy of the Catechism. But it's a great reference, if you guys want to type in Catechism of the Catholic Church, and then, if there's a specific topic you want to research, you can type it in there and it'll pop up with the article. So that's really helpful too. Just keep that in mind. But number 2, try to find other Catholics. Now, many of you are probably in college, others are not, but finding your people is going to be really important when you're going through, when you're being challenged spiritually. Something I like to say is like how iron sharpens iron, saints make saints. So make sure you check out your local Newman Center, see if there is a focus group on campus. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. Check out young adult groups, even if you have to drive a little ways to get there. If all else fails, yes, you can of course try joining online groups, but this should not be your first option. But sometimes you have no other options. But we should always try to strive for in-person relationships because digital relationships cannot replace in-person relationships. And I know I'm going to have some people upset at me for saying that because they have a lot of online friends, but unfortunately, it's the truth. It's not the same as face-to-face communication and face-to-face hanging out and things like that. So it can't be replaced with face-to-face, interactions. Another place you could potentially go to see if there's a group available are any pro-life groups, because there are tons of Catholics involved with pro-life groups. Try Students for Life, or if Live Action has a group near you, or any kind of pro-life rally or event, try going to that because I guarantee you there will be tons of Catholics. Okay, Number 3, make sure that you have a prayer routine and are receiving the sacraments regularly. This is probably should have been number 1, actually, now that I'm reading this out loud. But especially confession, those should be our top priority. Without God's grace and without spiritual nourishment, you are going to burn yourself out. You're going to get lost. You need that grace. Just, the way that I like to remember it is you can't take care of others if you yourself are sick. So get your soul in shape and then you can help others. You can't lift people spiritually if your soul is weak. So if you want to help others, you first have to take your own spiritual life seriously, take the sacraments seriously, and make sure that you're cultivating that relationship with God. Number 4, I think one of the most important things that I've learned when dialoguing with non-Catholics or Catholics too, who just don't take their faith seriously, is listening. Now, I know that kind of seems like, well, of course I listen, but do we really? Do we really listen? Because I feel like many Catholics don't. They just want a lull in the conversation to respond. Everyone can kind of pick up on this, and it's not great, when we're trying to evangelize. And I think listening can be hard, but we need to be able to put in the effort to actually hear the other person out and not just wait for them to stop talking so that we can talk, right? So try and resist the urge to jump immediately into a defensive mode. This is going to take practice, but it will get easier the more that you learn about the faith and the more confident you get in the faith. It really just takes practice, guys. All right, number 5. Learn when to leave a conversation. Now, I talked a little bit about this a little earlier, but not every conversation is going to be fruitful, guys. Okay, you'll have to use discernment to figure out when a conversation is not worth your time or energy, because the person you're speaking with might only want to argue. They might not be open to truth at all. They might be trolling. So, you have to be able to recognize that. And I see these situations a lot more online than other places, but it can happen in person too. I've experienced that. I know people have experienced that. So just know when to walk away or change the subject. You're going to have to discern whether or not what you have to do. Is it better to change the subject? Is it better to just walk away? It depends on your situation. But you will have to discern that because that's important to know. And today, especially because faith is more of a personal choice rather than a cultural expectation, the importance of living an authentic Catholic life as a form of evangelization cannot be overstated. Actions, as the saying goes, often speaks louder than words. So when you young Catholics, well, actually, Catholics of all ages, I shouldn't just say young, live your faith with integrity and joy and compassion and just loyalty to God, and you're really on fire for it, you are going to be a powerful witness to those around you. And including, because I get questions about this all the time, yes, including those who have even the most hardened hearts. Maybe it's your best friend of 5+ years and she's a complete liberal, pro-abortion, left the faith, etc., but you still love her and you will their good, which is what the definition of love is, willing the good of another. Maybe it's a parent or both parents, because that can happen, who are extremely hostile towards the faith and are now maybe hostile towards you since you converted. Or maybe it's your coworker, who has one-night stands and goes drinking every Friday night, but deep down that they're really in a lot of pain. I'm just pulling ideas out here, but there are so many situations and so many ways to reach hurt people. And you might be the only glimpse of Christ that these people will get. And I know it is hard, it's not the easiest thing to do, but being able to live the gospel out in your actions, not just preaching at people and trying to get them to repent, but getting to know them, actually walking with them and being a true friend, in my experience, is usually what truly converts somebody, not spitting facts or, reading scripture at them. Because I just, when you have a genuine friendship with someone, you don't just know facts about them, right? You know them. You've shared experiences, you communicate regularly, and their presence in your life should have a tangible impact. So when you have that relationship with somebody, it is so much easier to lead them towards Christ through your actions. And I should say here as well, our relationship with Jesus should also be the same. So we need to have that cultivated, deep personal relationship with Jesus, because these questions are going to happen, these hard-hitting questions and doubts are going to arise, and that is when you need to have your relationship with God to fall back on. When everyone else abandons you, God is going to be there to catch you. So that prayer routine and the sacraments are going to be so important for your survival, really, but also your spiritual health. You know, it's just so crazy how we truly only need Him. But that can be so difficult to see when you're in the midst of loneliness and isolation and just so many different things. You know, I hear stories of young Catholics across the globe who struggle with being the only Catholic in their family, or being a closeted Catholic in fear of their Protestant friends being upset at them. And it's really difficult, you know, but I encourage you to get the courage, to get the strength, to live your faith boldly. You know, the way that Christ fought for us, we should also be fighting for Christ in the world. And I also hear stories of young Catholics, you know, who dedicate their time to volunteering at local homeless shelters, or the young professional Catholic who openly shares their faith journey with their colleagues, like not in a preachy way, of course, like I stated, but through honest conversations about values, beliefs, faith, individuals, etc. And they are living out the teachings of Christ in tangible ways. And as Saint Francis of Assisi, my patron saint, of course, probably said, but probably didn't, preach the gospel always. If necessary, use words. Basically, our lives should be a visible manifestation of the love and truth that we profess that comes from Christ and His church. I remember first coming back into my faith, and I really only had Protestant friends and a Protestant boyfriend. That was a whole thing, man. But it was really challenging, you know, navigating those conversations. And I honestly, I didn't always do it right. I didn't always do it properly. So I just want to give you guys some encouragement. Please don't feel discouraged if you also make mistakes. That's a part of being human. You have to roll with the L's sometimes and get back up again. That's one thing that made the saints different from everyone else, is when they were knocked down, they got back up again and they kept trying. And guys, I want this podcast to be encouraging and inspiring to you guys. So I want to hear from you, the problems you're going through, if you need encouragement, etc. So email me at thereligioushippie, that's HIPPIE, @gmail.com, and put podcast in the subject line to have your email featured on this podcast. And please state whether or not you'd like to remain anonymous, or you can give me a fake name. Whatever works for you guys. I just want to be able to help you guys. And I want this podcast to bring us closer together, you know, handle these struggles together and support each other. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe. And yeah, I hope you guys are really going to like season 6, and I'll talk to you guys then. Bye. This podcast is produced by Amber Rose and distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright by The Religious Hippie. Any previously trademarked or copywritten content is used by permission. Information and opinions in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Be sure to visit the official website of The Religious Hippie at thereligioushippie.com, or find me on social media for other unique content. Thank you.